You're watching Taste the Victory.
We got another cross-based deck for you today, and that is Blue Flare. So a lot of these decks play a similar base play style because they bank on the cross mechanic, which is basically hard slamming something onto the field with its expensive play cost, and then after that, using the Digicross materials labeled on the card to reduce it further and get extra effects. This kind of takes blue hybrids to the next level of evolution. You are still doing a lot of stunning, but you are being more aggro with it now, and able to chip more, while before, blue hybrids was more of a mid-range momentum deck, and now you can be a little bit more aggressive than you could previously with the power of stunning and controlling your opponent's board. So with this particular build, we were aiming to annoy your opponent, set them far back enough that we could kind of outpace them. So let's look at the star of this deck, which is going to be MetalGreymon. It is a 7 to play level 5, 8000 DP, Digivolves 4 from a level 4, which is quite a lot for a level 5, but he has Material Save 2, which means when deleted, you can put 2 of his Digimon sources underneath one of your Tamers, and then on play, this Digimon gains Rush for the turn, which is great to let it attack the same turn it comes out since you are hard slamming it. Also, then, if you Digicross, 3 of your opponent's Digimon with a number of Digivolution cards less than or equal to this Digimon cannot attack or block until the end of your opponent's next turn. That is fantastic. Since we already have ways in this deck to source strip, that'll be able to almost always be live and be able to stun your opponent's board quite wide, a little bit even more easier than traditionally blue hybrids could before. When we actually still had Tommy at 4, this synergized incredibly well with that and a hybrid package, which is possibly why it was limited in the first place in North America. Because it is a really strong combo with just constantly stunning your opponent while also playing out a big body like this. But this is the card we're basically going to be building around and supporting. Let's go ahead and look at the bottom and make our way up to see how. First up is Upamon, easy to meet draw condition. You always wanted to get an extra draw. Then after that, we got Kyaromon. So we are running a 5th egg in this one because it's a pretty easy condition to meet, so we might as well run it to get some additional draws. It has the inheritable, once per turn, your turn, when one of your opponent's Digivolution cards is trashed, trigger draw 1. So again, pretty easy for us to meet, so we might as well include it there in case we ever go to a grind game to get 5 eggs. Then we start going to our rookies, of which we are running 12. First up is Gaossmon, who has Blue Flare in its traits. It is 3 to play, 1000 DP, and then it has the effect on deletion. You may play one level 4 Digimon card with Blue Flare in its traits from your hand, suspended without paying its memory cost. So that is fantastic to get things on the board to make sure we are always keeping up momentum. And then because it is on deletion, it is on both players' turns, so your opponent may not even know what you have in hand and be discouraged to swing over it if it lives somehow a couple of turns. So it's pretty useful there. And we're going to be running it at 4 for its trait. After that, we have Veemon. Veemon is simply jamming to let you be aggressive really early on with the rookie. So Veemon is kind of just a filler pick here. There isn't really too many important rookies in this color to run for this deck, and nothing else really too aggressively contributes to our game plan, so we might as well just start filling up with good stuff, you know, in the rookie lineup, and Veemon lets us aggro pretty early to get some extra swings in without worry, so we might as well toss him in there. After that, we have Syakomon. Syakomon is a floodgate. It has the effect, opponent's turn, your opponent can't reduce Digivolution costs. So if there are still some reason any hybrid deck still running around, this shuts them down almost completely. And then this also stops Mastamon if that ends up being a threat in the meta. I know going forward in Booster Set 11 it's getting new support, so there may be people that are going to be excited to try it out now. And it doesn't have the worst matchup into a lot of things in the meta, so if it does end up seeing some play, you're going to want to probably take a couple of these in. But we're just running it at 2 for now. And of course, for ModokiBetamon, because we just want to fill the rookie lineup with good stuff. And it stops your opponent from gaining memory except with Tamers, so that is really great in a format where Loop is going to be running around and is projected to be pretty popular. They can pop it with some pretty cheap options like Deathclaw for sure, but if you have multiple of these out, it becomes really annoying and you have to invest a lot more that could eat up a turn for them. The Floodgates will help stall our opponent and slow him down while we get to build up our game plan. So that's going to cover the 12 rookies, and after that we move on to champions. There's a little bit more here than I technically like to run usually at 13, but that's because there's some funny text in this build. So first up, let's start with the important one, which is Greymon. This one has to be at 4 for the Digicross mechanic. It's pretty much non-negotiable. It has 4000 DP, 2 Digivolve from a level 3. On play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 2 cards with Blue Flare in the traits from among them to your hand. Place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. If you have a Kiriha in play, you may return one MetalGreymon from your trash to your hand instead. On deletion, save. You may place this card on one of your Tamers as bottom Digivolution cards. And finally, it has the inheritable when attacking once per turn. If this Digimon has Blue Flare in its traits and your opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, unsuspend this Digimon. Greymon is basically the most important champion that we need to run because this is fantastic. Not only is his on-play search awesome because he lets you search important pieces of your deck, he also offers recursion for your MetalGreymon, which is one of the most important cards in this deck because of his Digicross ability. He also then has an amazing inheritable to help you potentially be aggressive at your opponent's security and unsuspend. Or if you don't want to swing again, just stay unsuspended so your opponent can't swing back over you. It's awesome and does multiple roles for the deck, which is why we love it. After that, we have Deckerdramon. Deckerdramon is another level 4, 5000 DP this time, 2 from a level 3. So it has on play, draw 1, then for each of your opponent's Digimon, draw 1. So that could potentially really fill up your hand pretty nicely, depending on what you're playing against. Against Crossheart, that should get you a healthy amount of draws. It also synergizes very well with Gaossmon because of Gaossmon's on deletion effect. If you have this in hand, it will be able to play it out for free, ignoring the cost, and then you get your draw effects. It's awesome. It also has the inheritable all turns when your opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. In a color that doesn't traditionally have a lot of DP boosting outside of specific archetypes, it's a really nice thing to have, so that's a cool inheritable there. Deckerdramon is honestly probably the most expendable of the champion lineup, which is why we are running it at 3 compared to 4. Especially since it's mainly just for the DeckerGreymon, which could also still be digivolved over another level 5 and still be incredibly value. So Deckerdramon is okay at 3. However, there are cards we can cut that we'll get to in a second if you want to up it. After that, we have MailBirdramon, 5000 DP, 2 to digivolve from a level 3. On play, if you have a Kiriha in play, you may return 1 MetalGreymon from your trash to your hand. If you don't have a Kiriha in play, you may play 1 from your hand without paying its memory cost. So either way, its on play is absolutely fantastic by getting us a free Tamer or by offering more recursion for a MetalGreymon, which is arguably the most important card in this deck. It's the boss monster. On deletion, you get to save as well, like a lot of Digicross Digimon. And then when attacking, once per turn, while the Digimon has blue flare in its traits and your opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, one of your opponent's Digimon can't attack or block until the end of your opponent's next turn. So there you see that we have more stun coming into play, which is kind of making it more of an evolved blue hybrids, in its playstyle. It's a fantastic card. MailBirdramon is also a name for the Digicross requirements of MetalGreymon, so you want to run this at 4 for everything it does and for being a material. After that, we have one Syakomon, which is just hybrid for game. This is the reason we were running it. Originally, actually, I'm going to go ahead and make this change for you guys now. Originally, I was running it at 2, because then at the very least, you have that little niche of digivolving over it itself for another potential stun. But in testing, I decided to cut down on that. And in that case, you just want to run Kumamon, because if you digivolve over a level 2 with a Syakomon, it is going to be 3 cost. So Kumamon lets you go for 2 over a level 3 or over a Tamer. So if you're just going to run one hybrid for game, you might as well run Kumamon. There is also an argument to run Lobomon because the 5000 DP could come up if you need it to survive or whatever. So that is just a hybrid for game inclusion. And after that, we have the spicy tech, Greymon. So Greymon just gives you security attack +1, but why are we running it? We can't digivolve this over anything. Well, MetalGreymon's Digicross requirements are Greymon and MailBirdramon. This Greymon does not specify anything other than Greymon. It just needs to be Greymon, and that's exactly what this one is called. So if you're Digicrossing from hand, yeah, you can put this underneath it, and now you get security attack +1. Paired with the unsuspended Greymon offers you, this lets you be very, very aggro and put your opponent on a timer, which is something this deck is missing, because the unsuspend on Greymon is nice and definitely helps, but otherwise you do kind of end up losing a bit of momentum in long-term games. So Greymon kind of patches that up, which is very nice. I think if you're going to run this tech, you could also try and justify upping it to 2 in case of getting stuck in security, but you could just as easily just put this down to 0 and up Deckerdramon to 4. I think it's a fun little cute tech, and you just kind of think of it as an option, because you're not going to be digivolving this over anything or hard slamming it either, because nothing can digivolve over this either. You are always going to hold this for your Digicross hard slam. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and talk about it. So we basically talked about him at the beginning of this video, but he is incredible because he has huge board stun potential and has rush. So if you're able to get multiple of these off in a turn, you're in a really good position, and it really helps you come back from behind because it's such a good tool for control and being aggressive. We love it. After that, we have DeckerGreymon. So this one actually has Armor Purge. It can also digivolves from a level 4 for 4, but can also digivolve from a level 5 for 2. As just said, despite not being an armored Digimon, it does have the Armor Purge ability. It has on play when digivolve, you may place one Digimon card with blue flare and its traits from your hand, or from under your Tamer to the bottom of one of your Digimon's Digivolution cards. Then if this Digimon has Deckerdramon in its Digivolution cards, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot attack or block until the end of your opponent's turn. And then you have his Digicross requirements, which are MetalGreymon and Deckerdramon. So that's awesome for more stunning potential and to be able to get another body on board with big DP. After that, we move on to Blazing Memory Boost. This card is pretty crazy. It is a 5 to play memory boost but it has main reveal top 6 cards of your deck, add 2 cards of blue flare and the traits among them to your hand, and you may play 1 Kiriha among them without paying its memory cost. Place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order, then place this card in your battle area. It also has delay, gain 2 memory. So we can kind of see why this is priced at 5 memory. This thing is insane. You have so much search. The top 6 cards of your deck is the most search of any card in the game right now, and you get to add 2 cards of blue flare and the traits among them to your hand. And then on top of that, if you reveal a Kiriha, you also get to play without paying its memory cost. The potential this card has a high roll is absolutely unbelievable, and then you still get to delay it later for 2 memory. You want to run this at 4 for that potential to get it free in security, but also just because it's really good to see and will be paying itself back in dividends. After that, we have Forbidden Trident. This is to stop things like Solarmon, Syakomon, all those annoying little guys that are going to try and stop our Digicross mechanic. This deck folds if it can't Digicross, so you have to be able to get rid of them. And what this thing does, it gives one of your Digimon plus 2000 DP, and then when attacking, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. So it's honestly not the best thing in the world. You would obviously want to delete that Digimon or send it to bottom of deck instead, because then it can just play it out or Digivolve again next turn since it's a level 3 Digimon. But sometimes you just want to get it off of the field for that turn to be able to Digicross, and this card does that efficiently. Next up, we have Howling Memory Boost. Trash the top 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon, then one of your opponent's Digimon with no sources can attack or block until the end of your opponent's turn, and you place this into the battle area, which you can then delay to gain back 2 memory. So just more stun potential that we have here to annoy opponents and get more memory back to make big plays. Following that card, we have Rattlestar. This is where we start to get into our removal. It is 5 to play and lets you return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to its owner's hand. However, if your opponent has 3 or more Digimon in play, it lets you return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of your owner's deck instead. And that ignores level after that, so you can bottom deck some stuff. So in this format, I think this removal is a much better option than a lot of the other things you have, because this sends to the bottom of deck, which is one of the hardest things to come back from, because some decks can recycle their trash. Other removal in blue just bounces it back to their hands so they can play it again. And in this format, you know, BT10, that's awful because they could just Digicross again. But here you can just bottom deck it, which means it's basically good as gone and they're never going to see it again for the rest of the game unless it goes really long, which is why we are running this as our removal and we have it at 2 copies. You could definitely play with this ratio and either up it or lower it. And Ice Wall, because it's Ice Wall, it helps you win games sometimes, so you can stall out another turn, and is Hammer Spark and Security. Whoops, looks like I forgot to put Azulongmon in there. Thank goodness I didn't publish before realizing that. This is a 50 card deck profile, and Azulong is kind of just like a tech boss monster. Since you're already source stripping so much stuff, this kind of helps with the payoff of that and letting you be a little bit more aggressive, which is something outside of a couple cards this deck struggles with. So Azulongmon is a good cap to your strategy. Finally, we got our Tamers. First up, we got Kiriha, who has been referred to in this video a couple times by card effects. It is 4 to play a memory Tamer, and then your turn, when you would play a Digimon card with Digicross in requirements, by suspending this Tamer, you can also place cards from under your Tamers as Digivolution cards when you Digicross. So this is like Taiki, but in blue. It's fantastic because unlike Taiki, he gives you a guaranteed 3 memory, which is always important to make sure you don't get choked, and then you get to play stuff from under your Tamers. It's a fantastic card. The reason, however, that we are not running it at 4 as opposed to 3 is because it is pretty expensive, and if we're going to run an expensive Tamer, Sora Joe, I think, is the more value one if you have to get multiple copies on the field, because 1 Kiriha is just 1 Kiriha, but 2 Sora Joes is insane value. At the start of your turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, gain 2 memory, and then your turn, when one of your blue Digimon attacks, you may suspend this Tamer to trash the bottom 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. So this card is just unbelievable for a Tamer because it's self-sustaining. It sets up its own effect for the next turn. It's amazing. Trashing 2 off of a blue Digimon swinging is a huge number, and if you have multiple of these out, you will gain a ton of memory, so you'll probably be able to do the MetalGreymon effect twice, because MetalGreymon's a Digicross effect. It minuses by 2 for each one of the names that you put underneath its source when Digicrossing. So with a full cross line, you play this for only 3 costs because you're reducing by 4. And between your memory boosts, you will likely have more than enough to be able to double MetalGrey. It's really great support for the deck to make sure you get your other effects live and set up, like MetalGreymon's stun effect. And that is going to be the Blue Flare list, guys. Let me know what you think of this one and any changes you are making. I would love to hear how you guys are building your deck and what techs you are running instead of the ones I suggested. And I hope you have a lot of fun experimenting with this format. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember to stay hungry until you get a taste of victory.